Uniquely.
Uniquely. Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Uniquely.
Issaquah.
Hello and welcome to Uniquely Issaquah, a conversation about the people, places, and things that make Issaquah unique. I'm your host, Tim Smith, and on this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at one of the preeminent festivals in the Northwest, Issaquah Salmon Days. Joining us to give us an inside scoop on this great event is the Issaquah's Director of Festivals, Robin Kelley. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. You know, Salmon Days, I've been in and around the city for about 15 years, but I've lived in the Northwest, Seattle, for most of, if not all of my life. And prior to coming to Issaquah to work, I never knew about Salmon Days, amazingly enough. Amazingly enough. The first year I came to Salmon Days, I was amazed. I was amazed and astounded about this crazy giant festival in this small little town. And ever since then, obviously it's been part of my life for the last 15 years. And I just want to know how this thing started, how did it get so big, and what makes it so unique and special?
Boy, that's a lot.
Well, let's start at the start.
Okay.
Let's start at the beginning. So when did Salmon Days start and why?
Well, back in the day, in the early 1900s, Issaquah celebrated with a rodeo. So people came from all over, even Seattle, and they had rodeo, roping, cowboys, the whole Western theme. And that was our community's gathering and celebration for years. And that died out, I think, in the 30s. And sometime after that, I don't know exactly when, Issaquah embraced a Labor Day celebration. So over Labor Day, they have an adult parade and a kid parade, and I was, of course, living in Issaquah, so I had to have my own little float in the kid parade a couple of times. So it's funny that it's come full circle, and here I am doing this. And in the late 60s, that faded away. And depending who you talk to, some of the stories were that it was too wild and got out of control, and so they stopped it. And other stories were that there just weren't enough volunteers, and so they'd burned out the people that were a part of it, and they just couldn't continue. And the reality is it was probably some of both. So when that stopped, the community didn't have anything that they could gather around again, and really, culturally, it's one of the markers of any community is having some kind of celebration. So the president of the Issaquah Chamber of Commerce at the time said, we have to have something. And so they were brainstorming, and he realized in the fall, the salmon were coming up the stream. And so people were already coming. There was already this occurrence. Why not build the festival around that? So they got out the National Weather Service statistics, found the best weekend statistically during the time that the salmon were here in the stream in Issaquah. It turned out to be the first weekend in October. So here we are, now 45 years later, celebrating the first weekend in October.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that's really neat about it is that how many people come to Salmon Days. So starting in 1970, how is that built? How has it been built up to such an amazing, huge event where you get hundreds of thousands of people to come to the small hamlet of Issaquah for the first weekend of October every year?
Sure. Well, it started very small, and for many years it was small. They closed the streets and had what there was, the attractions that were.
What were some of the attractions that were at the beginning that we have now? You know, that
we
kind of
still
carried
have
over.
art.
Oh, yeah.
They had art shows. It wasn't as sophisticated, but it was local artists, and then they introduced the concept of juried artists. So obviously they had enough applicants that they wanted to be a little bit more selective. They always had music. That was a part of it. There was always at least one stage, and for many years, two stages, one in Memorial Park and one, I think, at Front and Sunset. So music and art was always what it was built around, but celebrating the salmon. So we were having, and what we've learned to realize and celebrate even more, that we hold credit for a lot of this extra attention, is that we're celebrating something that is of nature, that was happening anyway, and we're able to have it be right in the heart of our festival. You know, how many cities have a stream running through them with salmon, that you can build around this celebration. So I think that was the uniqueness of it was special. But again, for many years, it was fairly small. It was a local community event. We did close off streets, and I wasn't here then, but they had these activities. I was raised in Issaquah, so I was raised with Labor Day. As an older teenager and young 20-year-old, I, of course, wanted to leave Issaquah. So I lived in Seattle and Bellevue, the much more urban setting that you would look for it in that age. And so at one point, I've shared this with people in the community, at one point I met the man of my dreams, and we decided to get married. And my church growing up was St. Michael's Episcopal Church on 2nd Avenue here in Issaquah. Mm-hmm. So we went to the church and met with them, and they said, we have a 30-day cooling off period. They wanted to make sure nobody rushed into that you took it seriously. And so we said, okay, that was Labor Day. And we said, what's the first weekend then? The first weekend in October you can get married. Perfect. So we announced it to everyone, rushed to make all the plans and get the invitations out. And the day before our wedding, we found out they closed the 2 streets that led to our church. So I was out with paper plates that had arrows saying O and R, Oscar and Robin's wedding, with arrows trying to get people around this festival that was terribly inconvenient on that day. So it's been a fun circle to come back to that. That happened for me in 1976. Mm-hmm. So it was still pretty small then, and they put cans on my car, and we drove down through town on our way out of town on our honeymoon.
Oh, but you were married on Salmon Days. That's amazing. And then how many years from that? So when did you get involved in Salmon? When did Robin take over Salmon Days?
Sure. Well, we moved out of town, out of state for many years. And so we lived in California, Washington, D.C., decided the Northwest was a pretty good place to be. And we decided that Issaquah was where we wanted our home to be. And so we came back to Issaquah in the mid-'80s. And I didn't go to work right away, so I had a little bit of time. And my sister Candy said, you should volunteer for this festival, Salmon Days. And I said, oh, okay. She said, you get a cool T-shirt. All right. I'm in. So I went down and volunteered and started volunteering with the Rotary Run, serving refreshments at the end of the run, and then the parade, and would go into their offices and help do mailers or whatever they needed. And then I got a job, but it was contract work, so sometimes I had some downtime and I'd help them out. And then one day they said, we have an opening. Would you consider working here? So in 1991, I went on staff. And then stayed on staff and worked in the festival office, and then for 2 years on the chamber membership services side. And I just found my passion was the festival side, and so when there was an opportunity, I went back, and I'm still there.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, it's like the salmon. Just keep coming back. I just don't have to spawn and die.
Well, great. Well, to be honest, ever since you've taken it over, it's just grown and grown and grown to this really one of these internationally known festivals, right? Award-winning festival, correct?
Award-winning.
What about some of these awards that the festival has won over the years?
We've been blessed, and I have to acknowledge there was a director before myself named Lorene Lund who did amazing things, and she had a lot of media expertise that other people hadn't had before that. So she really understood how to get TV and radio involved, and that helped a lot. And then also we affiliated with Seafair, and so that helped a lot. It kind of gave some cachet to our festival because we were part of Seafair. And so those two things, I think, were really pivotal. We had a float that started to travel around, so that also gave us an audience outside of our local community. So those were a lot of the reasons that I think we started to see that attendance climb significantly. As in the festival, we're part of the Washington Festivals and Events Association. It's our professional association, and also the International Festivals and Events Association. So being a member of those two organizations, we participate in their conferences, we learn from them, we network, and we also submit what we think is an awfully good festival. So we've been blessed over the years to win many times many awards in Washington, but also several times the top award in our budget category at the International Festivals and Events
Wow, that's
Association.
impressive.
It's amazing, and it's a tribute to what this community comes together and does.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny, and one of the things I've always found cute and interesting about the festival is the themes every year. They're so funny. Sometimes they're tongue in cheek, plays on words, whatever's going. So let's talk about some of the historical themes that you've had over the years and where they came from. Were they just marketing things, or were they based on current events, or what inspires these interesting themes?
It's a diverse way that we get to them. Sometimes it's based on something that's going on in the community. So a couple of years we had contentious political situation. So running again in '96 was literally based on a lot of the campaigning and everything that was going on.
And that was very local. That was local campaigning, right?
It was local and national.
And national.
Yeah,
and national. So it was based on both.
It was both, and we really felt it, the weight of it in our community. And so it really took that life. That was where the inception came out. But of course, the fish coming upstream are called a run.
Right.
So it was running again in '96. But that was where the background of that came from. And then another time there was something in the water. That year, actually, there was controversy about chlorine or different things that they were maybe putting in the water, and should they put them in the water. So that was kind of a funny, it's an expression people were familiar with. There's something in the water, but there really was something in the water.
And that wasn't just the salmon.
Yeah, it wasn't just the salmon. And then one year we did Born to be Wild. And that theme was really from the discussion in the community at the time about hatchery-raised salmon versus the natural runs, and how important it was to protect the natural runs because they were the wild salmon, so Born to be Wild. And so that was the theme that year.
I remember that year because I had so many requests of, get me a T-shirt.
Oh.
We need those T-shirts. And I remember it was so hard to get those Born to the Harley riding fish, right?
That was a salmon on a Harley is what we call them. And we have never had another T-shirt. A T-shirt sell as well as that one did. We sold out, I think, by noon on Saturday. Unheard of. We took a list of people and had hundreds of people who still wanted them. And it just morphed into this whole different life. And so even though Running Again was about the wild salmon versus the hatchery-raised salmon, that year in particular, it was very popular for people with extra money to buy Harleys. And so they were businessmen and contained and controlled and professional all week long. And then on the weekend, they put on their leathers and got on their Harley and would have fun. So it just hit at that time. So it took on the extra life of the salmon on the Harley. Then we found out that the keyboard player from Steppenwolf, who sang the song Born to be Wild, lived in our community. We got in contact with him. I remember talking to him on the phone and saying, we want you to be our grand marshal in our parade. And I mean, I'm on the phone with him saying, you want me to do what? Where? What? And he came, and he had long wild hair, kind of blonde, curly wild hair, which was actually very similar to my hair at the time. And we both had similar complexions, and we were standing together talking, and multiple people came up and said, oh, are you guys related? And took pictures of us. And at first I thought it was odd until I saw the pictures, and I thought, oh, I totally understand it now.
That's funny.
But so he was in the parade as a grand marshal, and David Harris, our great entertainment chair, put together a backup band, and we featured him on the stage and played the song, and it was just magic. It was one of those perfect moments.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the other things, besides all these great themes, is you almost have your own language, certain things that you say. What are some of the words that have come up over the years that Salmon Days has created?
Sure. And people take great pride in sending fish jokes to us, and I have a collection of fish jewelry that is probably, the top.
Do you ever get tired of fish? No.
Well, as I showed in my necklace.
Yes.
Actually, my house is a salmon-free zone.
Oh, okay.
So my house is very different than what I live at work, and they need to have their own space.
Right.
So our office is floor-to-ceiling salmon, and it's fun, and we love it, and it's what our reputation's built on.
Mm-hmm.
And even with our sponsors, who are one of those
Sponsors.
unique sponsors, SPAWN,
So that's part of that language
Yep,
we were talking
sponsors,
about.
and they are officials.
Official.
So fish is in the middle. We have our kickoff dinner is Salmon Chanted Evening.
Salmon Chanted Evening.
So yes, we take great pride in it, and
That's
we
great.
actually service marked those terms. So those
okay.
are ours, and people aren't able to use them without our permission. So we wanted to protect it. We realized it was something unique and valuable to the festival. Lorene Lund, actually, the past director, was the one who came up with a lot of those and realized there was an identity connected to them, and so protected them. And we add on to those more each year when we do a ribbon cutting for a new business at the Chamber of Commerce. You know, they're trying to lure in new business and the scales of commerce, and, you know, they're all geared toward these fishy puns and terms because it's what Issaquah is known for.
So, what is this year's number?
45.
45. 45 years. So, what is year 45 bringing us? What's old that's always here?
Okay.
What's new that we've never seen before? Possibly. Are there any surprises coming down the road?
Well, if they're a surprise, we're not going to tell you because it's a surprise.
Oh, darn it.
And we like to have surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk to the attendees every year, so we get surveys because we want to keep our finger on the pulse. Sometimes you're too close to it, and we'll talk within the office and think something is amazing, and then we'll go outside the office and say, what about this? And they'll go, what? No. Well, I don't get it. And if you have to explain it to people, it won't work because we're not there to explain what we thought was terribly clever
Right.
every time it gets said or every time they see it printed. So we've learned that we have to use that filter. And sometimes there are things that don't ever go outside of our office because they were only appreciated by us. Sometimes they're not politically correct.
Right.
All
Or
of those.
Too little much of an inside joke, maybe, or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. So this year's Coho Mojo.
Coho Mojo.
That's a theme that I actually thought of about 10 years ago. I loved it. It was in my head, and I went to our graphic designer, Robin Spicer, said, this is it for this year, Coho Mojo. She went, okay. And she left, and she came back, and she said, I can't think of anything visually to go with that. And I said, like mojo, you've got your mojo working, Coho Mojo, and it's so clear in my mind.
Right.
And I'm trying to explain it to her and get her excited about it. So she left again and came back a couple weeks later and said, you'll have to hire somebody else. I can't think of anything. Because she has to think of the whole campaign.
Exactly.
It's not just one image. She said, I just can't.
It's
And
a
I said-
block on the mojo.
I said,
she didn't have
she
mojo.
didn't have the mojo. So I said, you know what? Then it's not meant to be. Sometimes you have to accept if you're having to work too hard for something, maybe there's a reason. So we just put it to bed. We keep a list of potential themes. Robin Spicer's amazingly creative and gets the community and gets the festival. So she's always coming up with new ideas. But we also have volunteers who've come up with ideas, sponsors who send us ideas. Everybody's sending them, thinking about it. That's the magic of the festival. Is they're a part of it. They're not just attending it, but they're a part of it. So the sponsors can sponsor 85 different things a day. And we want them to sponsor Salmon Days. We want them to have fun. We want them to enjoy it.
Right.
So they really are a part of the process often for us. So one year we had Kids, Chaos, and Coho. That was the theme. And our board of directors, when we announced it, a couple of the board members said, oh, you can't have that theme. And we said, what do you mean we can't? Oh, no, chaos. This could be terrible. Do you know what could happen? Do you know what you're creating downtown? I mean, and they were very serious about it. Their connection to that word was very negative. And I said, if you look up chaos, it means a lot of things happening at the same time. It's not a negative or a positive. It's a lot of things happening at the same time. Right. There is no better term for Salmon Days than chaos.
That's right, because there's stuff going on everywhere, all around town.
Everywhere, yeah. So that year, they finally succumbed. And that year when we sent out our sponsor contracts, we wrote them up on letterhead, but we used rubber cement, and we put a crayon for them to sign the contract, bubble gum, and a balloon.
Oh, that's
just
good.
to really pull them into this Kids Chaos and Coho. Come and have fun with us and play. And that really is something unique and special for them when it's another contract, obviously.
Right.
But what's different about it, and why do they make the choice to support this festival or this cause?
Right.
You know, when they have lots of choices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Coho Mojo, circle back, here we are. And the two other people in the office said, gosh, you know, the festival started in 1970, and that was kind of the hippie peace signs, tie-dye, and all of a sudden Coho Mojo made sense.
Right.
And it came in. And so they're youngerlings, where I'm the older, seasoned person in the office. So I'm remembering the real 70s.
Right.
Which they say if you remember them, you weren't part of them, but that's not true. I do remember. And the youngerlings were remembering Austin Powers.
Right. They were making their connection.
Their connection to it was Austin Powers, and he's got his mojo working and shagging and groovy baby.
Right, right.
So we looked at each other and said, yeah, that really works because it pulls in everyone.
Right.
You know, in our demographic. People are going to relate to it. Absolutely. So that's the fun of it. So think tie-dye and think fun. And
so that's this year, Coho Mojo. So what are we going to expect this year?
Peace signs and tie-dye and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. There'll be some photo opportunities that will tie in the theme. We have some new attractions this year, so we're going to have a local sponsor area that's new, just some of the smaller businesses that have always wanted to be a part of it. We've created an opportunity for them. We're also going to have paid attractions this year in a carnival setting, which is different. We haven't had that for years.
Right. So what type of things would that entail? So is that going to be part of Field of Fun, or is that set away from the Field of Fun?
It'll be set away from the Field of Fun for a couple reasons. The biggest reason is they're big, heavy rides that can't be on the grass.
You're actually getting rides this year.
Actually getting rides this year.
Wow.
So there will be something, the motivation for this is the tweens. Because the young kids have a lot of things to do in the Field of Fun, a lot of free fun activities, hands-on things, which we love, and we don't want to tamper with that because that's what a lot of families are coming for. It's free. They can come spend all day. They don't have to worry about it. The older teenagers don't want to do anything that you plan because that's not cool. So they just want to come and hang out with their friends and walk around and watch people. So they're good too. And the adults have the arts and the music. But the tweens are kind of stuck there. Yeah. So this was really created to give something to them. And the younger kids, there'll be some things that are for the younger kids.
But they're really kind of bigger, a little more scarier maybe. Or not
scarier, quite half
but
of them, but more sophisticated, more mature, faster.
Where are they going to be?
They're going to be, we're working on it right now, but the tentative plan is they'll be on Front Street North across the street from Dairy Gold. In the Staples parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be easy to get to. Yeah. They'll actually operate on Friday and then Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
So it'll give something else, one other thing. And even for the people that come to the festival, then if they want, there's time to do both. Come both days, do whatever it is that is fun for you.
Yeah. And that's an underutilized area, I mean, it's really not part of the festival in years past. It kind of ends right there at Front and Rainier,
and Dogwood.
And Dogwood.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. I'm excited. That's new. That's brand spanking new.
We are too, and we'll see. You always introduce things and you see if it works for your audience or not. We've tried different things over the years, and some of them were hits, and some of them we found weren't the interest of the people coming to the event. It wasn't anything wrong with the project, but it wasn't what people were coming for.
Exactly.
And so that'll be the fun part of it, is trying to have it be there, be interactive, get the pulse of the community, and then if it's a hit, terrific, and we'll continue to do it for years.
So Doc Dog's coming back?
Dogs are coming back.
I love dogs.
They were an ad, and once they were here, that's all we heard about. And so every year now, it's on our top priority. Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's my personal pitch.
Sure.
Always want dogs ever since they showed up. They're awesome.
Yeah.
So, anything else new and exciting, or what always there? Will they always be there? What kind of things?
Well, when we survey the crowd, because we do like to find out what people like and what they come back for, and we have a really high retention rate and return rate for our attendees. So we have grandparents coming back with their grandkids and parents coming with their kids and people who've grown up around the festival. So the things they always identify are the parade. They love the Grand Parade, and it features a lot of our local kids and groups, but also a lot of floats from around the Northwest.
And I will say, I've gone to a lot of small town, and the amount of floats, it is literally just a step below Seafair, to be completely honest. You get a lot of floats, and I've always been very, very impressed by the amount of floats. Because I've been to Redmond's and Kirkland's and Bothell's and all these over the years, and Issaquah's little Grand Parade I wouldn't say is a little Grand Parade. It is a legitimate parade with really great floats, and I just think it's an awesome job you guys do every year.
Well, thank you. I'll share that with the parade committee. And that comes because there are a crew of volunteers, the Sambassadors, who literally
Sambassadors?
That's another one of those terms. Yep. They're ambassadors from Salmon Days, Sambassadors. So they start in April, and they go to the Tacoma Daffodil Festival and about 12 other parades leading up to Salmon Days. And Sammy the Salmon, our mascot, goes. We used to send our float, but because we don't have a float anymore, now Sammy goes as a VIP, and he rides in a convertible, which is really such a contradiction in what people expect to see, that it's memorable and engaging. We have a lot of fun with that. But because we've made the effort to go to their parades and be part of their celebration, they reciprocate, and they come to Issaquah Salmon Days. So that's how we get those floats. There's a crew of people that have gone to each of their festivals, and so they're coming to ours. So it's great to know that you appreciate it, because they're putting in the time on the roads to make
I mean, I
that
love
happen.
seeing the Boy Scout troops and the Girl Scout troops and the small businesses and that sort of thing. But the unique thing is that you don't often get the Strawberry Festival festival float and I mean, I think some of the ones come from the Eastern Washington too, come long distances.
They do. They come from Astoria, Oregon, New Westminster, British Columbia, and Spokane Lilac Festival. So it really comes from around the Northwest. And Portland Rose Festival comes, Seafair comes, Marysville, Tacoma Daffodil, Wenatchee Apple Blossom. I mean, there's quite a group that we have in the Northwest. Wonderful celebrations, community celebrations, and then this participation in each other's events.
Yeah, that's really good.
So the parade's a big thing. Seeing the salmon is a big thing.
Of course.
They love to come and see the salmon, especially if it's someone who doesn't live here. If it's someone who lives here, they don't bother because it's very crowded. It's very interesting, but they can come any other day of the week.
Right.
So they save the food and the art and the music, or they come with their kids and let the kids just play for hours in Veterans Memorial Park. I mean, it's all there and free, and the dogs are there.
Yes.
And we'll have laser tag on the hatchery grounds, so we're kind of splitting that up a little bit this year.
Okay, that's new.
It'll be it's new, and it'll be for a little bit older also. So the kids who want to do that will be able to go and do it free. One of the missions of the festival for years, I mean, well before I came, was that it was free for everyone to come, so that no matter what you had in your pocket, you could come and do whatever you wanted to do pretty much.
Right.
If you wanted to buy art or you were buying a lot of food, of course that's going to cost money. But you could come and experience a festival, go on the rides, see the fish, spend all day with minimal cash outlay.
Yeah. You could start in the morning, watch the parade, go to the parade, walk through all the tents, and then make your way to Field of Fun. Listen to some music, and nothing out of your pocket. That is an amazing goal. And I think in this day and age where you go to any of these festivals, you go to Seattle or any of these places where at one time it didn't cost that much. Now you're putting out a lot of money, and so I think that's really neat that the Salmon Days has really tried to stay to that fact where you can come and have a great day with your family and not spend a lot of money, but still have a wonderful day.
Absolutely, it's a mission. I mean, we work with a lot of sponsors because they sponsor what's free. So the reason that you see all of the sponsors, or maybe some of them on site at the festival, is because they paid for something to be free. So all of those things that you get to do, you can do the fish prints, where they paint the fish and put it on paper. That's free because Children's Hospital sponsors it. So each thing, the stages, if you'll notice, there's a corporation or business connected to it so that it could be presented free. And we really want to retain that, wherever possible. The shuttles are affordable. The parking, if you take the park and ride shuttle, it's $3. There's no fee to park. It's just $3. And having just been at another festival where it cost $30 to park our car.
Right.
$3 is sounding pretty good.
Yeah. That's a bargain basement.
We want it to be affordable.
Right,
That's the goal.
Right.
It's just no boundaries. We want them to come and be a part of it. The other thing we really take great pride in is that we work with so many of our other nonprofits. So Salmon Days is a nonprofit, but we reserve a certain amount of the exposure and activities for the festival for other nonprofits. So we worked with over 65 other nonprofits last year, and those are all organizations that are based in Issaquah or support Issaquah. Like a King County agency that might support residents of Issaquah would be permitted. But that exposure is saved for the
65. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot. That's another great goal. That's
Thank you.
I'm just loving this festival more and more by the minute talking to you. This is all great. But you've been involved with the festival for so long. I know there are some funny stories, some mishaps, some crazy happenings. Maybe we can talk about some of those. Some of those things that maybe went awry, that looked like a good idea at the time, and next thing you know, didn't quite turn out that way, or maybe just some funny or unique anecdotes over the years that you can remember.
Sure. Well, the funny thing about working for a festival that you've attended and then you start working there is you never see them the same way again. So many things that go on behind the scenes that the attendees would never know. They're not supposed to know necessarily the work that goes into them. It's important to make sure that it happens. But the attendees are supposed to just come and have fun. They, all of the rest is just smoke and mirrors, and they're not supposed to know or care. But every once in a while, there's something that that is different. And so, one year there was this great idea to set up kind of a MASH hospital in Memorial Park to let people see what that would be like. And the National Guard was involved, and MASH was a big show, and so it made perfect sense. It was topical, popular. And so one of the highlights of it was to have a helicopter land in the middle of the park next to all of this stuff. It's a great idea. And then the helicopter started to land in the middle of the park, and there's quite a downdraft from the helicopter blades.
Yes.
And so it was clearing the park of all of the tents and tables and chairs as it landed, and it was a terrible mess. It was a great idea, just not thought through quite the same way that it would never happen that way again, because we've all learned from it. We try to learn. We try to learn from that. We've had politicians coming through with llamas because they felt like the best way to get their visibility out there was to bring a llama.
Okay. Walk a llama through the festival.
Walk a llama through the festival. Salmon Days often is pretty crowded. It became quite a topic of chatter on our radios within the festival staff and volunteers. And we kept saying, what about, people would say, Robin, there's a llama walking down the street. And so I'm talking to the police and everyone, and they're saying, it's a public street. You can have the llama on the street. It's not a good idea because it's a great big animal, and there's a lot of little kids and strollers. And But yes, absolutely, he had the right to do it. The politician did, but it was one of those unique things that a lot of people wouldn't have known about. But but we'll remember.
The year of the llama.
Yeah, the year of the llama.
So the year of the llama. that sounds pretty. Must have been a unique year. What other things have gone on in the past that sticks out in your mind about what's taken place during the festival?
Sure. Well, years ago, I think in 1990, one of the features of the festival was to celebrate the First People. Mm-hmm. So in Issaquah, the valley here, it was the Snoqualmie tribe that lived here. So the festival focused on them. They had 2 of the elders from the tribe as grand marshals in the parade. And then years later, we had the opportunity again to highlight the Snoqualmie tribe. And it was a year they were trying to get federal recognition. They were a small tribe, and it was difficult. There's a certain amount of competition within the tribes and recognition. So they were a smaller tribe and hadn't been recognized by the federal government yet as an authentic tribe. And yet, people who'd grown up here knew them, went to school with them, all of that connection. So that year we had a chance to have the Snoqualmie tribe featured again at the festival. We got a King County grant to help pay for it. We had we had a videographer there documenting it. And it was a great experience, and there were so many new people who'd moved into Issaquah that it felt really important to share this because Issaquah was new to them. Salmon Days was old to them. I mean, because it seemed old in how they were hearing about it and what their experience was. But the reality was the Snoqualmie tribe had been celebrating the salmon returning to these streams and lakes forever.
Yes,
forever.
Yeah.
So it was a really good way to kind of connect the dots of here we are still celebrating this.
Right.
And here were the people that were doing it
The
long
original
before we.
celebration.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
So it was a wonderful opportunity to do that. Not long after that, they did receive federal recognition. They're a tribe that's recognized nationally now. And now this year at Salmon Days, they're actually our title sponsor. So we're so proud to have them.
Kind of came full circle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where you were like advocates for them, and now that they've established themselves as a federally recognized tribe, they've got a little more, they're bigger and stronger, and now they're title sponsors. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I love that.
It is. It's a great story, and we love it. We love having them be back with us and connected in this way, where historically, they were doing what we're doing now. So it's a wonderful connection.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I've been, I've been coming for about 15 or 16 years now, and it usually is very nice. Hardly ever does it rain. Occasionally it does. I think only a couple that I can remember that were really rainy weekends. But most of the time, it's low 70s or even into the 80s. It's just a wonderful weekend.
So much for their research. That's
right.
That's what they looked for.
Yeah, that Farmer's Almanac is good for something.
And the reality is for the festival, it can be anything as long as it's not heavy rain, because we live in Seattle, so we have the best citizens.
Oh, hardy. They'll a little sprinkle, a little gray mist. That's just Tuesday.
Tuesday. Exactly. We're blessed in that case.
Yes,
we had a sponsor once that was from Southern California, and they came up, and it was a rainy day, and we'll have rain part of a day, and then it'll clear up. And I mean, it's not unheard of to have rain at Salmon Days. And I didn't want to go down and talk to them where they were, because I thought, oh my gosh, it's rainy. There's not as many people as there would usually be. It was a Saturday, and they'd come up from Temecula, California. It was the Outdoor Channel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They were having people audition to host their own sporting show.
Oh. So
it was really fun, and they'd come all that way, and we talked to them many times, so we felt like we knew them. And so I walked down there in the rain thinking, oh, I'm so sorry, and trying to imagine the conversation. And I got down to them, and they said, oh, my gosh, this is the best festival ever. Are you kidding? And I said, really? And they said, if it had rained in Southern California, there would have been 6 people here.
Right.
So what I thought was the smaller crowd, they thought was amazing.
Right.
And so it put it all in perspective, Yeah, we'd love it to be nice, and the expression in our office is it goes on, sun or shine.
Right.
Because there's no plan B.
Right.
It's that weekend no matter what. So,
well, that's amazing. And we've learned so much and had so many great insights on Salmon Days. So let's talk a little, just to button it up. If people want to know more information about this year's festival, where should they go? What should they do?
Sure. We have a website, www.salmondays.org.
Awesome. And just log on there and they can get all the information about all the events and activities.
Yep.
That's great. Well, Robin, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Uniquely Issaquah. And Salmon Days is definitely unique to Issaquah. And if you'd like more information on upcoming episodes of Uniquely Issaquah, you can like the City of Issaquah on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at City of Issaquah. Thank you for listening and stay unique.